There we go. Done. Okay, much better. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 prakim Rambam. We are learning Hilchos, Toyim, Venitin, prakim, Yud Gimel, Yud Daled, and Tesvav. We are starting with chapter 13. We learned yesterday the rule of Cheskas Shaloi Shanim, through which one indeed will get a chazaka over real estate. And in this chapter, we're going to learn the people who, even if they are on a property, they will never establish a chazaka being there 3 years or more, as we'll explain, and we'll see why is that. This chapter has 11 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph, says that Ve'elu, the following people, she'ein ma'amidin es hakarka biyadam. We will not establish, we would not leave the land in their possession, even though they have these 3 years of chazaka. Number one, manim, craftsmen. The Rambam is going to go back to everyone and explain. It's very logical. V'ho'arisin, sharecroppers, v'hapitropin, guardians, v'shutzvim, partners, v'ho'ishben yichse ishta, a man in the possessions of his wife, a woman, a married woman in the possessions of her husband. In other words, even if one is there for many years and the other one, who we know is the original owner, did not lodge a protest. They didn't lodge a protest because they're not makbid one with the other. That's why. And again, don't forget what we learned in the previous chapter is that the original owner has to be proof that he indeed is the original owner. But which ba'alim shehiviyu rayim shezois ha'aretz yidu alahem. And also, as we learned, whenever there's a taina, like you would have this mine, and one is koifer hakel, which is happening, the original owner is saying it's mine. The current occupant, who we're not giving the chazaka to, is claiming that he bought it. So the other party, the original owner, v'yeshavu shehesis, they have to take a rabbinic oath, shaloi machru, or v'shaloi nasnu, whatever the taina is, as we learned in Perek Yud Aleph. Halacha beis. Another exception, interestingly, why the Rambam didn't put them all together, but the Rambam writes another group of exceptions. Rashi Goluyois Shal Oisa Hasman, the heads of the community of the time, meaning that there was mamish, an amount of legal power that the Babylonian government gave to the Jewish community for us to rule ourselves. So these are people that had real governmental power. And therefore, there were times that they seized property, and their being in possession of property doesn't mean that they bought it. Bahagazlan, someone, as we'll see, is known to be a robber, nor a goy. In these three, they are men of force. So, the original owner didn't lodge a protest because it would be ineffective. Now, this is extremely important. Let's quickly go back to what we learned in the previous chapter. When I live in a property for 3 years or more, that in itself doesn't make the property mine. It gives substance to my taina. In other words, when Reuven is known to be the original owner, and I'm the current occupant, not this chapter, the previous chapter, you know why my 3 years will give me power? Because I am claiming that I bought it. Or I'm claiming that the original owner gave it to me as a gift. I have to come and explain, how did it go from that guy who we know owned it? How is it mine? I have to have a taina. The normal taina is I bought it. Where is my document? I say, listen, I was here for 3 years. The guy never protested. I don't have to hold my document forever. But you only get to keep it. Living in squatting doesn't make you own it. I don't know what the goyish law is, and I don't care. What makes you own property is either you bought it or you got it as a gift, or you got it via Yerusha. You needed to acquire it legally. The chazaka is a raya to what you're saying. But you have to have a taina. The cheder shoyte v'katan, they don't have a taina. You understand? Now, doesn't mean that they cannot acquire things. They could acquire things, but they're not competent, mentally competent to be someone with a claim. And therefore, even if they're there for 3 years or more, it goes both ways. If they own, like we said, these three, a Katan Ben Yoimai can be Yoidish $1 billion from his father. They can own things. If someone moves into the property of a Katan, what, the Katan's not protesting, doesn't prove anything because he was just a minor. And therefore, both ways, ein achilasirayim. Halacha gimel ketzad ein ma'amid and asakarka biyadon. What does it mean that they're not given the privilege of establishing a chazaka? That Rambam is going to unpackage all of the exceptions. Reuven she'achal stay Shimon shnei chazaka. When it's known the field belonged to Shimon, and Reuven now was eating there for 3 years or more. For who? And Reuven has to have a time. Reuven is claiming that he bought it. So first of all, we learned that yesterday, Shimon has to bring Eidim that independently confirm that the field belongs to Shimon. That you have to start out with. But Shimon not only brought Eidim that the field belonged to him, he brought witnesses, the same witnesses, other witnesses, that the current occupant, Reuven, Reuven is his partner, or Reuven is his sharecropper, or Reuven is his guardian. In other words, they have a established relationship of trust. And that's why the original owner is explaining, I didn't make a protest. I'm not going to make a protest against my partner, but I never sold it to him. Indeed, the original owner gets it back. But like we mentioned, the Yeshava Hesed, and V'hu Adin to all the other exceptions. However, if Reuven doesn't have an independent halachic proof that Reuven, the current occupant, indeed is his partner or is a sharecropper, but Reuven admits, Cain, I used to be a partner with him in this field, but now I bought it. He admits that he used to be a partner. Here we have him. Here Reuven has a migu, and if he would have wanted, he could have claimed that Shimon was never my partner, or I was never Shimon's partner. And had he made that claim, because of the rule of Cheska Sholoshadim, Beis Din would have granted him the land, even though he's admitting he was a shutaf, but he's still claiming the taina is I bought it. Now, that's a typical case of amigu. Halacha dal. Ha'umanim keitzad. If someone was on a property as a builder, in other words, he cannot establish a chazak. Imagine you hire a guy to fix something. The minig here is when you hire someone to work for you in your house, when they tell you it's going to take 2 months, it's a minig. It's going to take 14 years. They never finish. Imagine, so the guy is there, he's working. And after 3 years, he says, I bought it. He's never believed. However, if Yardu Mei Uman Musan, if this guy left his profession, then from when he left on, after 3 years, he'll make a chazaka. Then Yesh Lahem chazaka. Halacha hey haritz in case what will be a case of sharecroppers. They're going to show you others la'aviv. But this is interesting. If someone was a sharecropper to the father of the original owner of the field, that's important. In other words, it's a guy that already worked many years for the family. Not that he started to work now. Once you work many years for a family, you establish a trust. It doesn't have to be to the father of the guy who's proving that he owned, to any other close family member. Again, he's a worker, a sharecropper for the family, generationally. Even though he never worked for the son, doesn't matter. Someone who worked for my father many years, who is now living in one of my homes, I will not lodge a protest. I'm not going to even dream that he's going to come and claim that he bought it. But if the sharecropper just began working for the guy who used to own it, not for the father, here we say, Ma'amidin oisem biyado. Because even though the guy you just hired him as a sharecropper, we tell the owner who proved that he owned it. A sharecropper gets a percentage of. A sharecropper doesn't get to eat everything, and you allow this guy to eat all of the produce, not 1 year, year after year after year, without making a machal. No, is a raya that his time is true. The arisin, that is the exception to the rule, is someone who already worked for the father of the original owner, like we explained. And the Taka makes it now, how many years do you have to be working for the family? The Rambam doesn't write. But we know that. I know that people that work for my father, there's already a connection, there's a trust, and I don't feel the need to make a protest because I trust the person. Halacha ba. Like we mentioned, even in the case where the guy already worked as a sharecropper for the father of the original owner, that he on his own hired new workers. Here again, yesh loy chazaka. If that happened for 3 years without a protest, because even if you trust someone, a worker doesn't have the right to hire other workers without your consent. You're allowing this to happen means that you're basically admitting it's no longer yours. Now, that's only if he hired new people. But different will be if you already hired 10 workers. He was the guy in manager, and then there were 9 people under him. If the manager that you made reassigns jobs, that's different. You don't get involved in that. You don't have to micromanage. Means you already hired all of the workers. This guy simply went ahead and he just told you, instead of you working on field A, you work on field B. He rearranged them. Then ein lechazaka, when this guy used to be the sharecropper also of your father. Because Shema, memuna al ho'arisin asuwaisa. He did it as a memuna. He did it as a manager. Then another rule, even if a guy worked for your father, if he currently is no longer the aris of this field, and after him not being an aris, he was there for 3 years and you did not lodge a protest, then like we learned above, then yeah, of course he makes a chazak. He won't be the exception. It will be part of the rule. Next halacha 7. Who apitrupin kates of guardians. Now, who appointed him makes no difference. First of all, whether he's a guardian on this very field that he's claiming he won, or even if he's a guardian for other fields. I'm not going to lodge a protest against my guardian. Whether this guy was appointed as an apitrupas by the Beis Din, he was appointed by the father. Now, normally the father appoints when the kids are minors. Indeed, he was only there when they were minors. But they liked him so much that even after the minors became adults, they left him there. Or even if he was not made a guardian over the management of this real estate, he was simply made as my financial manager. In other words, he was made into someone that made sure to see how much income I have, how much expenditures I have. Bottom line is that this is a person that's trusted by me to run some of my affairs. I'm the original owner, proven independently the original owner. And this guy now, who was there in my land for 3 years, is claiming that he won. But here again, that if the apitrupis left the position, then for the guys who just chimed in over here, we are in Perek Yud Gimel Halacha Ches. If the guy was a partner in this field, but another very important wrinkle, he was a partner in this field that had such a small size, the ein badin chaluk. And guys, we learned this in Hilchos Shutfim, that 2 partners, if even only one of them wants to dismantle the partnership, he gets to do it. He gets to do it by not goido egoid, before goido egoid. He takes the field and he divides it into half. I take half and you take half. But if we learned that in order for a field to be called the Shem Sada, it has to be big enough, I think, to plant 9 kav of produce, right? If it's an orchard, a half a kav. If it's a chatzir, a 4x4 amas, every property had a different measurement. Now, if that property is smaller than that, you can't divide it physically into half and have each half still maintain the name. Then there are a whole other rules. Then we learned the din of goido egoit. We don't have to repeat it here. But the Rambam is making clear that the exception of the shutav is only when he's a partner in that which she'ein by din chaluk. That even if one took all the produce many years in a row, it still remains under the presumed ownership of both. And this guy cannot claim I bought it. And this guy didn't only eat from half of the field. That's the key. The years, the 3 years of chazaka, yes, yesh le chazaka. Even though the guy is a partner. Because shaharei oimrim l'shutafai, im be'emes loy mecharta v'loy nosato, ha'eich ochal askola, and va'ato shutaf, and v'loy mechisavai, v'chal shal l'shanim gavaldik. Oh, now weiter. Let's go to the man and his wife, and the wife and the husbands. The guy's married, and he's eating everything up over there. Now, there's a chiddush. When a man gets married as a gesture to his wife, a man can say, I waive my rights to your property. So even a man that made that waiver, and then while he was married, he took possession of one of her properties, then he claims she sold it to him, he won't be believed. He won't be believed. Because why would a wife make a protest against her husband? She doesn't want to rock the shalom bayis. You understand? Even if this guy waived all of his rights, that he's not going to inherit. And afterwards, while they were married, he behaved like a boss. And he's claiming he bought it, and she's denying that he ever bought it. And he's saying, no, if I wouldn't have bought it, why would you not protest? I waived my rights to any right to the land. She says, no, I didn't protest because we're married. Here again in the other direction. Even though the husband says, from here you will eat your mazoinas, and she ate from other fields. Let me say like this. There's a word in Yiddish. It's not Yiddish, it's the whole bimavater. Bimavater is really the holy tongue. Bimavater, a husband and a wife, they're mavater. Them not protesting is simply because they have a loving relationship, so they're tolerating it. But it doesn't prove that they are somehow expressing acknowledgement that the other guy became the owner. When a son is living off the father, in America, it's until the son is in the mid-40s. That's the minikir. So he's part of the household members. That's eating or living in the property of the son, but not the son that's independent. This son that's again, these are people that are mevater one on the other. They intermingle their finances. The lack of protesting does not mean anything. Halacha 9. But when the son leaves the dependence of his father, his financial dependence, or when a wife gets divorced, and here he adds a gavaldik word, even if it's a safek gerushin. Now in Hilchos gerushin, we learned all these cases just for an example. The Torah says v'nasan biyado, but we know that he doesn't have to actually put the get in her hand, even though that's what they do today in a beis din. But if a man throws the get to her, and they are in a public domain. Remember that whole rule? So if it halachically falls closer to her, whatever that means halachically, then she gets divorced. If it halachically is cut of loy, she's not divorced. But what happens if we don't know? It's equally cut of loy, cut of law. She's called safek migoreshes. Once a woman is safek migoreshes, and either he's still living in her property or she's living in his property, they're not mavater anything to each other. Hareim keshar kol adam halacha yud. And the Rambam again is writing B'mei Chachamim because as time went on, the Goyish government here in America does not give as great as it is, and there's a country of freedom and religious freedom and beautiful. We don't have the right to govern ourselves. Every citizen is bound by the same legal system. In Babylonia, it did not work that way. Just understand that there were millions of Jews that lived in Babel, and the Goyish government in most areas gave the community, the Jewish community, the responsibility and the right to govern ourselves. That means that the head of the Galuyos was mamash, he was like a president. He was a man of power. He had the legal authority to rule over people. If that Rashi Goliath moved into my property and I did not protest, and I'm claiming I never sold it to him, and he claims that he bought it, he doesn't have the document because I did not protest. It doesn't mean anything. But it goes in the other direction as well. If they own property, they own property. If someone moved into their property, they never felt the need to protest. You understand why? Because they know that whenever I want, I'm going to take it back. You know why? Because these are not people that need to lodge any protests. You know who has to make a protest? Someone who has no power. What can you do? Make a protest. Shkoyach, okay? You say your thing. The guy with power doesn't have to talk. You can take it, just take it back. They place Yadam Takif. And therefore they know calls Manchayir. So whenever they'll want, the Stalkin Zamiman. No, they have the power to. When I know that I always have the power to remove the squatter, I'm not even worried about the squatter. It's like the irony. I'm only worried about a squatter when I think, oh my God, the guy is there. Mitamol, he'll become the balabas. If I'm not worried about that, I'm going to tolerate him. Abel numbers down like any other claim. Nishboin heses shaloi machru v'shaloi nos. And the chein heim herzika b'nich zayach. And v'amar shaloi machar. In both directions. So there's always going to be a shvos heses shaloi machar lahem v'lenos lahem. And whoever is known to be the original owner will remain with the land. And Lamad, they'll have to take a shvos heses that they did not sell it to the guy that has been living there for 3 years. Final halacha yudal, the final of this chapter, hagazlon. We write a robber doesn't make a chazak. So he says like this: Mi shohuchsa gazlon al sadazu. Now, huchsa, just to know what it means, huchsa, you have witnesses that know that the guy robbed this land. That's important. Because if someone is known to have robbed other lands, then Rambam is not writing that this guy can never make a chazak. Someone who's known to be a gazlan of this land, or Misha Huchsaku, God forbid, Shehain Hargin the Fashois, Alice Kemamoin. Someone is known, God forbid, to kill for financial benefit. No, it's not to sin for financial benefit, but Atkadekach to kill. Then even though we don't know his relationship with this field, the guy's on this land. You understand the original owner, you know why the original owner did not make a protest? He didn't want to get killed. That's why he did not protest. Now, why the guy has courage right now to kick him out, I don't know. But the fact is, the guy's claiming, I never sold it to you. So the din will be, Tachser, Sadalaba Olim. Beautiful. Okay. Now, the second chapter that we're learning today, Perek Arba Asar, is really a hemshech to the 13th chapter. Let's quickly go back. The Rambam introduces the Cheska Shaloshan. That was chapters 11 and 12. Then we began learning exceptions. Now we're going to unpackage more about the people that we just mentioned in Perek Shloisha Asar, right? People that cannot establish a chazaka by them being there for 3 years. What happens if they bring other proofs? Don't forget, these guys, they can buy land. So we're going to further go into this whole world of the peoples that cannot only establish a chazaka by 3 years, but let's make even sometimes there'll be exceptions to the exceptions. Or what's going to happen if the children of these people are there for 3 years? Do the children remain in the category of the exceptions, or they go back into the rule, Chaska Shaloshanim, and so forth? Perek Arba Asar also happens to have 14 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph, says the Rambam. Kol elu she'ein achilas unayim. All of the people that we learned in chapter 13, them being there doesn't give them a chazak. But im heviu edim, if they bring witnesses, shumachru lehem haba'olam saduzu, that the original owners, that they're not denying, we know it's established, sold them this land, or that the original owners nesanuha lahem b'matana, they have edim. So then rayasam raya, you're going to say pshita, wait, with one exception, or two exceptions. Gazlan. Now, Gazlan will be explained, guys, in the next halach. It means if a Gazlan brings a raya that he bought it, he still won't be believed. And a husband in the property of his wife, which means that even though he has Adam, guys, that he gave his wife money, you know what we say? The woman did not want to sell it. And for a sale, I know you need a kinyan. But if you remember when we began learning the whole Sefer Kinyan, it's like a dual. You need a Kinyan, you need Gemiras Das. You have to consent. And many times a wife in the marriage is inside of her not consenting, but she doesn't want to rock the boat. So she says, fine, but there was no Gemiras Das. Now, that what? That Baal b'nichsei ishtoi, even though he brings Eidim that he paid her, he still won't establish a chazaka. Because that's only b'nichsei tzrein barzel. So quickly reviewing, there are properties that she owned prior to marriage. She brings into the marriage, but the husband accepts financial responsibility for these properties. And on the other hand, it's basically his. That is where she would not want to protest. You have to understand her psychology. She didn't want to protest because she thinks anyways it's his. Even though when he divorces her, he has to pay her, he has to give her back that land or the equal value. It's not so pasha that. Or ubisada shekasav lo b'ksuvasa, or ubisada shenasan lo b'shum mishaloi. In all of these cases, we say that she did not, even though that our Adam that he bought it from her, she felt she doesn't want to rock the boat, but she didn't have Gemiras Das. But however, properties that really are always hers, if they become more valued, she'll benefit. If there'll be a divorce, if they became devalued, she loses. The husband's rights during the marriage is only to have the user fruit. In such a property, if she would not have consented to the sale, even a woman who's afraid of rocking her shalom bayis, she would tell her husband, no, these properties are mine. I don't want to sell. No, it's dear. If she sold it, then we say she meant to sell it. Yesh leiraya. And all of that was already learned in Hilchos Ishus Perek Chav Beis. Okay, so the Rambam is not going to elaborate that much on the husband and the wife, but let's go back to the first exception. Imagine a Gazlan brings proof, Eidim, that the robber paid the owner, doesn't do anything. We already mentioned this in the previous chapter. When we learned in the previous chapter, Halacha Yudalev, a Gazlan means Shehuchsa Gazlan al Sada. There are witnesses. We know independently that the current guy robbed it from the owner. Now, even if the robber now brings Eidim that testify that the original owner was Moida, Shehoida Habal b'fnei Eidim Shemacham le'Sada. And the original owners say, I never actually sold it, and I never took money from you. I admitted that in front of witnesses because you had a gun to my head. I was afraid of you. We believe him. Once the guy is proven to be a robber, then people act or react to robbers differently. Now, Ein Loi Klum is because no one saw monies being exchanged. They just heard the original owner say, yeah, and I got the money. We don't even believe that happened. Now, let me go further. What happened if witnesses saw the robber paying him? Guys, if someone gives me money, but I don't want to sell it, it's not a sale. I have to give the money back, but it's not a sale. That's the next case. If witnesses come, not that the original owner was moide that he paid, that they actually saw the original guy receiving money from the robber. Still not a sale. But here, this original owner, the emes owner, has to give the money back. And that all of that we learned in Hilchos Gesela Perek Tes. Beautiful. Halacha Gimel. Now let's go, like we mentioned in the intro, to the son. So the craftsman, that was the first exception in the previous chapter, cannot establish the Cheska Shaloshanim. What about the son of the craftsman? Or the son of the Aris? Or the son of the guardian? And they ate She'achlu Sadazu Shnei Chazak. Now again, we have to hear what their taina is. Don't forget, guys, chazaka without a taina is nothing. Im ta'anu shahab olam machru lo hen, that the original owner sold it to them, to the son, or they gave it to them as a gift, and they were there for 3 years. Then yes, they make a chazaka. However, if their taina is that they inherited from their father, now their father was the aris, the father was the apotropos, and they ate Shnei Chazaka, if they're coming b'koyach their father, they can't be better than the father. Eilehem Chazaka. The only person whom them being moide means nothing is a robber. But now this halacha gimel is not about the robber. Then also that's a good proof. Then my midan is asada in the hands of the children, because that's called that ayah that the father was, that the original owner was moide, that he sold it to the others. Sometimes people sell their stuff to the others. You can sell your stuff to an apotropos. Halacha dal. And now let's go to the Ben HaGazlan. So the Gazlan has like the least power. What about the son of a robber? Like we mentioned, if the proof that he brings is that the original owners admitted to his father, the robber, that yes, you sold it to me, as we just learned in Allah Beis. But that only goes one generation. Avol Ben HaGazlan, the grandson of the Gazlan, who's saying that the robber, I have Eidim, that not concerning the robber, the son of the robber. Afilu babatainas oven, the Aviv is only the Ben HaGazlan. Yesh lechazaka. But again, babatainas avi Aviv, only then, only the Gazlan himself, ein lechazaka.
How does a Gazlan buy property? Nobody's going to believe him that he did.
You got it. You got that, Kevin. Now, one thing is clear, that's even going back to the previous chapter. I mentioned that Rambam wrote at the end of the previous chapter when he spoke about the exception of a Gazlan, not that if someone is known to be a Gazlan in general, it's about someone who we establish with witnesses that he Gazled this land. So let me word it this way, Kevin. If Reuven robbed your house, this guy will have a very difficult time ever legally owning it. Correct. But that's your house. If the Gazlan buys other properties, we're not saying that a Gazlan here is a Gazlan for everything. And you know what? So be it. So be it. If a guy enters something with koyach of a Gazlan, go get out. Okay.
His reputation is gone. Yeah.
It's more. In this land, he has, like you said, in this land, it's going to be very hard for him later to legally own. Because the original owner can always claim, I accepted the money because I was afraid of you. He might have to give him the money back, but he'll have a hard time owning it. Now, now we're moving on to a goy. A goy, even if he was on a property for many years, and you never lodged a protest, again, obviously, we're speaking about a scenario where everyone, Jews and lahavdil the goyim, are under the jurisdiction of a Jewish basin, obviously. But if this guy cannot bring a document, the field will go back to the owners. I have the gears of beloy shame shvua. I know that in the Chayenu it says beloy shum shvua. You don't even need a shvua. Didn't we learn the whole thing of shvua seses? Yes. Shleitik shvua seses elali Yisrael. That's a gavaldik rule. Now another day, a Yisrael that's coming machmas hagoy. In other words, the original owner that was proven and based in is Shimon. Shimon has documents that he owned it. Currently, Reuven is living there. Shimon tells Reuven, what are you doing here? Reuven says, I bought it from the goy that bought it from you. The original owner says, I never sold it to the goy. The current guy says, what are you talking about? The goy lived there for 10 years. You never made a protest against him. The guy says, so what? I don't have to make a protest if a guy is living there. And the original owner is right. So if your koyach is coming from the guy, then you being there is also not an ayah. If the guy ayah, givaldik. Now, no, the original owner obviously is claiming he never sold it to the guy. Halacha va. Tons a Yisraeli. Haba machmas hagoy va'amar. Hold on. Befanai lekach hagoy. Shemachar li mizeh Yisrael marol alai. Let's go. The Shimon was the original owner. That's the names that Rambam is giving. Then Reuven is living here right now. Reuven is saying to Beis Din, hold on. I witnessed the guy buy it from Shimon. I witnessed that. I saw that the guy bought it. Now the Jewish and the Jew is there for 3 years. I'm saying the guy is there for 3 years because you'll be believed because of the migu. What's the migu? Reuven could have said, I bought it from you. Obviously, and he was there for 3 years. But it has to be Yeshua has it. Why is he believed? He's saying he got it from a guy. We just learned in Allah, hey, if you come machlas a guy, you have no taina. So what you said, no. He would have said that he would have been believed. But he has to add that I witnessed the guy buy it from you, the original owner. Another rule. If something belongs to a minor, you cannot make a chazaka in it. Afilu higdil. You went into the property when the owner of the cotton was 12. So 1 year he was a minor. And then you stayed on. No, it's you are currently there for 3 years. And again, you have to have a timing. You're timing. But hold on, if I went in there when the minor was 12 years old, and then I was there for 4 years, in other words, if I have 3 years after he's an adult, yeah, I have a chazak. Now, the guy is claiming, he admits that attack belonged to the minor. I'll tell you more than that. But they owed me money. Now that's a whole different time. Then Neman. Okay, we're speaking. Okay, very important. Halacha Ches is speaking about a scenario. Someone is in the property of a minor for many years, not when the minor is an adult. When the minor is a minor, but no one knew that this land belonged to the father. This guy is claiming that the father borrowed money from me. This guy is claiming that they owed me money, and now that's a mashkin. So since it's not known that it belonged to the father, see, don't forget, guys, we began this in chapter 11. All of this is when the original owner can prove that it belonged to them. Here we don't have that. And the advantage of someone, of a lender, living in the property of the borrower is, if you remember going back to the laws of Ribbis, we're speaking about an agreement where when I took something as a mashkin, the agreement is that I live off the fruit and I deduct from the debt. So this guy will deduct the chayiv and then v'tachzer la yisoymim. So I cannot make a chazaka to claim that I bought it. We don't believe that because the original owner, the cotton's not protesting, doesn't mean anything. But if I'm living in the land for many years and I'm claiming that I'm here only because they owe me money, in the case where he could have claimed that I bought it, why? Because we don't know independently it belonged to the father. So now we believe that they owed money. Nigu.
So isn't he taking advantage of the orphans?
Well, like
because he knows they can establish.
But generally, I don't have any rights just because I'm there to make any claim against the minor orphans. Here's an exception. But it's only an exception in a case where this guy, Taka, could have claimed that I bought it. Why? How can he make that claim? Because the only reason why the current occupant has a problem is because Beis Din knows independently that it belonged to the original. Halacha Ches begins in a scenario, we don't know that. If this guy would have claimed Lekuchen, he would have been believed. So we give him a migu when he's claiming that it's a mashkin, and I'm going to live, the guy owes me $100,000, and every year I'm eating $10,000. I'm already here for 5 years. I'm going to stay for another 5 years, and I'll give it back. We believe him because we don't know that it belonged to the father. Abel, that's the next part of Allah Ches. Im yatsa aleh koil. Even if there's only a koil that it belongs to the orphans, no longer neman, because of the rule that we said you can't be machzik b'nichsi hakotan. That's what we learned in the previous chapter. Now, here comes the irony. Once the guy is not believed, what is he saying? He's saying, I'm living here for 5 years. I'm eating off the debt. If he's not believed in the Beis Din, not only does he have to give back the land, but he has to pay for all of the fruit that he ate in the past 5 years. Now, the guy has a claim that they owe him money. Say that you have to wait until when they become adults, and then you can take them to a din Torah. But the general rule is that when they're orphans, when they're minors, there's nothing you can do now. Now,
there's no api terupis involved here.
No. Very good. Now, here's different. The father was an adult. I ate 3 years when the father was still alive. If I would have claimed that I bought it from the father, who did not make a protest, I would have been believed. But again, what is he claiming? The orphans are minors. He's in possession. He's claiming that he's only eating up the debt. He'll be believed again. Whenever you have a migul. So yes, and the egg boys, I paid this. And it's amazing that he doesn't even have to take an oath because of the power of the migul. If he would have claimed that he bought it from the father. Now, halacha yud, moving on to the next case. If a person has to flee, but it's very important, some people have to flee because they are in a financial danger. Some people have to flee because there's danger to the life, and it makes a big difference. Don't forget, guys, the whole chazaka is established because the original owner should have made a protest. The downside of making a protest is that people will find out that you are alive and where you are. So if a guy needed to run away because his life is in danger, for example, the government wants to put him to death, then you can never make a chazak in his belongings. Because anyone who's going to squat there, and he claims everything, of course, with the time that what you lock off, so what? We cannot turn around and tell the original owner, the guy says, you know why I did not lodge a protest? I'm making sure that no one knows that I'm alive. I'm hiding myself. But if you only ran away, when I grew up in Brazil, everyone who had financial problems in America ran away to South America. That's what they ran. When a new guy came to town, my Zaidi used to ask, what crime did he commit? That was his first thing. This guy, for sure, why did he come here? He's running away. He's running away from the IRS. Who knows what? If you run away, I don't know how you term running away from the IRS. Maybe that's called nefashos. I don't know how you define it. You should have made a protest. I know that Brazil then at least did not have any extradition, so you could have made a protest. You have to analyze. If there's a real reason why the guy did not lodge a protest, then you can never make a chazak. Halacha yudal. Machzikin the nichsei eshes. Now, when we learned in the previous chapter, one from the exceptions where you don't have a chazaka, that a man in his wife's property, the wife and the husband's property, correct. Now we're learning about a third party. Someone else could make a chazaka by him living in the property of a married woman. Ketzad. Achala mitzvahs shnei chazaka b'chaya habal. Now the Rambam already begins into a sophisticated case over here. When they were still married, someone moved into her property that was under his possession to a certain degree while they were married, but not a full 3 years. Now, after they got divorced, he continued to be there for a full 3 years. Here are the cases he passed away. And then the To'an v'amar at machartli ubaylech. He's claiming not that he bought it from her. He's claiming I bought it from you and your husband. It was I bought it when you guys were still married. Now that claim, right, if they would have remained married, he would have to eat for 3 years while they're married without them making a protest. He doesn't have 3 years of them not making a protest because there wasn't a them for 3 years. He passed away during the 3 years. But he is here for 3 years after he passed away. So here we have a migo again. Since he could have claimed, I bought it from you after your husband passed away at the time that you were the only owner, and you should have lodged a protest and you didn't. then we believe, even though that he's claiming he bought it from both of you guys. And during those 3 years, she did not lodge a protest. Now, in contrast, but let me say like this, Kevin. If we have a total of 3 years, but you have to combine, you have a total of 3 years, a year and a half when they were married, the other year and a half when she was the sole owner because the husband passed away. What do we do over here? Here we say there's no chazaka, which makes a lot of sense. Because when they were married, there were 2 owners. There was no chazaka during that period. After she's a widow, you don't have a chazaka during the other period. You don't have a 3-year chazaka during a time where the owner, whoever they are, singular or plural, did not lodge a protest. Halacha Yud Beis. Now the Rambam is reiterating this rule that any chazaka she'ein imay taina, that's not coming with the claim of ownership. You have to explain how you own it, even though you're there. Ein chazaka. He gives a great example. A guy is living in a property and he's making use of it for many years. At some point later, someone is lodging a protest at Beis Din, and he's telling the current, let's call him a squatter, what are you doing here? This is mine. What were to happen if the occupant, if the machzik says, I don't know who it belongs to. One thing I know, no one was here. I moved in here. No one bothered me. The kivin shalei amali adam. Since no one told me anything, I'm here. If a guy makes that claim, ein zu chazaka, he doesn't get to keep it. Living, squatting in a property, being a bandit, a ganef, for many years doesn't make you own anything. If he's not making that, you have to have a claim of ownership. Either that you bought it, or you got it as a gift, or you have it the Yerusha. It's not. Just being there doesn't make you the owner. Nevertheless, says the Rambam, even in this case, even where the guy is not claiming that he owns it, he's saying clearly, not that I own it. No one bothered me. So I'm here. Yet, just because another guy walks into Beis Din claiming he is the owner, the guy has to prove it. We don't kick him out that quick, even though we know he's not the owner. We only remove the squatter for the owner, but we don't know yet there's an owner. Just because a guy lodged a protest on Beis Din doesn't mean anything. Once the guy that came out to Beis Din, Hevi Eidim, not only does he get the land back, but Pedis can mean rent. There's details about the rent. We also learned about Zenehenas, Alichasar. Is it a property that the owner normally rented out or not? That will affect the rent. But let's say if there's a sud and there's Pedis, he always will get the Pedis. Now, there are exceptions where Beis Din opens up by asking questions or by giving solutions. Generally, they don't do it. This is the general rule. Beis Din doesn't open up by telling him, maybe you had a document and you lost it. That's what a lawyer will do. The Beis Din cannot lead a guy on. They're quiet. They hear what they said. They don't add, they don't subtract. And even though there's big consequence, another thing. Imagine that a guy is there. A guy is there because he has a document. At some point later, there's someone else that comes that says, this is mine. The guy pulls out a document, and it's discovered in Beis Din that the document is possible. The document is bottom. Was if my taina is the shtar, if for whatever reason my document is invalidated, then they kick me out also. The chazaka doesn't make me the owner. The chazaka substantiates my taina. If my taina is a shtar and the shtar is batel, then batel ha-chazaka. And don't forget, not only does the land go back, but everything that I ate now is owed. His taina is, I have it because I got it the Yerush. So hold on. He has to prove that his father lived there or his father used that even only one day. And now the kivin sha'achalo hu shalosh shana machmas avim. It's amazing. So again, guys, think about this. Reuven is in a field. Comes along Esav, and he says, that field is mine. Reuven says, no, this field was my father Yaakov's, and when he passed away, I'm a Yoivish. You have to have a chazaka. Who's chazaka? Reuven, the son, was there for 3 years, but he needs also to prove that his father lived there only for 1 day, not 3 years. Because if I'm claiming that I'm here because I got it be Yerusha, I have to show the Beis that my father was an owner. Not that my father was there forever, not even he was there for 3 years, but yes, for 1 day. If I'm claiming I got it be Yerusha, but I cannot bring a proof that my father was ever there, it's amazing. Again, we're speaking about that Esav has a raya that it used to belong to him. The guy that's lodging a complaint proves that 10 years ago it belonged to him. The guy is I'm a Yoidish. 3 years is not enough. It's 3 years, and your father lived there for 1 day. And in such a case, here also, the son Reuven not only has to deoccupy, he has to back pay. The guy that's living there right now is not claiming that you, Esav, sold it to me. And if he would have claimed it, he would have been believed. He's only claiming that it belonged to his father Yaakov. Beis Din doesn't know that. Beis Din knows that it used to belong to Esav. But if so we said he has to bring Adam that his father lived there. Now, when we say living there, it means living there as a boss, living there as an owner. If the only thing he can prove is that someone saw his father walking on the property or looking, he was seen on the property, that's not enough. Could be his father went to be mavakir. He went to visit his brother, not to buy it. But again, the chiddush is that I don't have to bring a proof that my father lived there for 3 years. I lived for 3 years. I'm claiming if Esav would have owned it, he should have made a protest. That's a good, I have a good claim, but if my taina is Yerusha, I have to prove, Beis Din has to know that my father lived there for 1 day. Even Yom Echad, Gavaldik. And this chapter's final halacha Yud Dalid, says that Rambam like this. The person is living on a property for many years, and this guy that's lodging a protest comes. And he tells the current occupant, who are you? What are you doing over here? And the guy right away says, I knew that it used to belong to you. Another Jew sold it to me. I paid money for it. And that Jew told me that he bought it from you. Now, the Rambam already had this case by a guy. Now we're speaking about all Jews. And now the regional owner, the Ma'arad, is saying, what are you talking about? That guy is a Gazlan. All the beauty is that this guy has a chazak. Doesn't matter. Since the current occupant admitted that what? That he also knows that it belonged to this guy that's the Ma'arad. And he's saying, I did not buy it from you. I bought it from someone else. And here the beauty is, even if the Ma'arer cannot prove independently that it used to belong to him, it doesn't matter. Because both parties are admitting it used to belong to the Ma'arer. No one is debating that. He admitted that. The current guy is saying, I bought it from someone that bought it from you. The original guy says that someone is a Gazlan. You have to give it back. It's Gavaldik.
Wait, so why didn't he come forward earlier?
Huh?
He should have come forward earlier. He's been there for many, many years.
I know. That's a good complaint. Because the current guy, based on what we're ruling, is innocent also. He was tricked. Now, but Kevin, one thing, like we had before by Yerusha, if the guy that's living there right now can bring Adam that the person from whom he bought it lived there for 1 day, that doesn't prove he's not a Gazlan, but that's already enough. He lived there only not for 1 day. Oy she'amar loy befonai lekacha mimcha va'achar kach lohar li. Or if the current occupant says, I saw you selling it to him. Don't forget, this guy has a migul. This guy has a migul. It means if the current occupant would have said that I bought it from you, he would have been believed. So we believe. Notice he has to have a taina, but he has a lot of credibility. Then yes, then the current occupant gets to keep it. Why doesn't he have to bring Adim by Yerusha? He doesn't have to bring Adim that the guy that sold it lived there because he has a migul. Because the guy has shnei chazaka, mamush gavaldik. Perek Chamisha Asar is going to learn about all different types of claims that people could have, halachic claims against someone who's muhsik in karka. You're going to have scenarios where two people have claims against the same karka. We're going to have claims against the document of sale. In other words, it's all about someone who's an occupant that has proof, others that are coming and they're questioning the proof. This chapter has 11 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph, says the Rambam. Misha irer al asada. Someone lodges a protest regarding a piece of property, and like we began again in Perek Yud Aleph and Perek Yud Beis, the first thing the guy who's coming to Beis Din has to prove independently is that he owned it. And now, so Beis Din turns to the current occupant, and the current occupant has a document that he bought it from the original owner, and he brings Adim that he was there for 3 consecutive years. Both of these are good tainas, right? Both. Which one should Beis Din look at first? We tell this guy, guys, it's a lot better for someone to establish his right to a property by a document of purchase. It's a lot better than someone establishing his right because he has chazaka, like we claim. Because really, a chazaka doesn't give you ownership. That's what we had in the previous chapter. A chazaka gives you credibility to your claim. But instead of you needing believability that you bought it, let's use a legal document that proves that you bought it. Even though it means that if you only would have had the Eidim, which you have, that you Shnei Chazaka, you don't have to do anything anymore. You won already. Here, you're going to have to notarize your document if you came with a non-notarized document. Still, Beis Din would rather rely on the document, so they're going to tell you, Kaim Shtarch. And obviously, in this Kaim, if you manage to do it, Harei Mutav. And the Yidoin Bishtar, and you will have possession on this land based on a document. Now, we're not minimizing the fact that you also have Eidim, that you have a Chazaka. If for whatever reason we didn't learn yet the dinners of notarization of a document, then Chazaka. And the first nafkamina will be is that if I have a document that I bought it, I don't have to take an oath. If I only have chazaka, then the yeshava hesed shalakacha, I will have to take an oath, a rabbinic oath. Halachat beis eidei chazaka sheheidu echad mishneim sha'achalachitim shnei chazaka. Let's go back into the witnesses. If you have to have the chazaka, so one of the two says that we saw the current occupant eating wheat. The other one of the two says during those same 3 years, the current occupant ate barley. Do we say that since they're testifying about a different type of produce, their testimony is not combined? We don't say that. It is combined. Edus and kayemes, because they just focused on the fact that even though everyone knows that Shimon used to own, but Reuven is living like the boss. He's planting, he's eating. Let's say the current occupant is actually there for 6 years. Now, the two Eidim, you don't need 6 years. He has to Eidim because they never saw him during the same year. Eid number 1 saw he was there in the 1st, 3rd, and 5th. The second witness testifies that the current occupant was there in year 2, 4, and 6. That's different. Because Shabashana Shemei was loy it was.
So, but if you have 2 witnesses saying 1, 3, and 5, and
that's also not good. That's also not good because it's not consecutive.
No, but you have 2 other witnesses saying 4 and 6, 2, 4, 6.
Then you're good. Then you're good. Good. And we already mentioned this in the previous chapter that once a guy claims ownership which means he's also saying that he ate it. He made benefit from the land. If he loses his claim in Beis Din, it's not only that he has to give the land back, he has to give back the produce that he ate. The Tachzara Karka Vapeis. Halacha Gimel. He went in there because he, as far as he knows, he got it from his father. Now there are times, and this is something in Hilchos Nachlas that we're going to learn soon, the whole Seder of Yerusha, right? There are many potential heirs. You have people that come first in line, people that come second in line, right? It's very simple. When Yaakov passes away and he leaves 12 sons, we understand how it works. But there are many people that when they pass away, after the Holocaust, very few people were survivors. It was presumed that that person is the closest in line, al pi halacha, to inherit. But later you can discover that there was another person that was even closer. That's what happened over here. So a guy was there for many years, but thinking that he was the heir. But then the nimsa yoirish acher that halachically is cut of yoisim imenu, and we know that he's ro liyerush. Doesn't matter how we discovered him. Ben shenimtza me'edim. Ben, we don't need edim. If the current occupant himself admits, I took over the land, my great uncle passed away, I thought I was the closest. This guy that showed up, he's taka the einikel. If the guy that's here is moida, then chayiv lahachzer kol ha'perish ha'achol. Kevin, you made a comment in the previous chapter. You could also say it's not fair. No, it's the guy all of a sudden owes money. He never would have eaten it had he thought it belongs to someone else. It turned out it belongs to someone else. You have to give back the money. I'm sure the guy will be understanding. You can say, let me pay it out over years. Maybe the guy can be moichel, but you're chayiv. Halacha dal. Shnayim shoyim them alasad. Two people. Now this is important. I'm sorry. Oiredin alasad. Two people are lodging a protest against the same property. Zeh oimer shali. Zeh oimer shali. This is very unlike the case we have in the beginning of Bava Metzia. Shnayim oichsim betalis. That goes back to the chapters that we had before, the earlier chapters. By metaltalin, that the machzik physically is presumed to be the owner. So if they're both equally muchzakim, aside of the piece that's in everyone's hand, the rest is yachloiku. Here it's different. Here it's land. But the same machloikus, each one is claiming it's mine. None of them are proofs. Oi, shehevi kol echad mehem edim. Guys, halk up now. It's going to get a little bit fun. Each one has equal proof. Either each one has edim shehi shaloi, or each one brings edim that had belonged to their father. They are coming with no proof, or whatever the proof is, they balance each other out. Or each one brings edim that they were there for shnei chazaka. Now, one thing is very important. If I bring edim, Kevin, that I ate here 20 years ago for 3 consecutive years. If you're edim that you ate chazaka now 3 years, that's not called equal, because Beis Din will believe both. They'll believe that I ate there then, but you're going to have more power because you ate now. I'm speaking about a case where both people are bringing witnesses regarding the same 3 years. Really, in reality, not that common, because Beis Din knows how to interrogate witnesses, and we know they're lying. But sometimes the witnesses are well prepared, they're good liars, professional liars, and their testimony passed. That's the key. It's speaking about the same years. What do we do over here? People, when they hear this, they jump. Kevin will jump of joy. Yeah. That's what that's your words, good. But Beis Din says, we will not get involved. May the stronger man win. You have to see Kevin's expression. If you're not watching this, you're missing the whole Rambam over here. So manichem oisa b'neim. You have to understand like this. Beis Din is not God. You have to look at it from different angles. When Beis Din knows that there's nothing that they have to give the rights one over the other, what will be the alternative for them to take possession? Who gives them right to take possession? And I think we learned yesterday or 2 days ago, like by the boat, we learned this, the din of Sfina. Forgot what chapter. I think that was in chapter 10, the end of chapter 10, Allah Chavav, that if Beis Din takes possession of it, then they don't say Kol Da'alam Kvar. Then they're responsible. But Beis Din, if they don't know how to resolve it, they're not obligated to stick their nose into something when they know currently there's nothing they can do. They leave it as it is. whoever will have more koyach, there is a certain presumption that the guy that's right will win. I know there are exceptions. Okay, but in other words, the point is that what should they do? Once one guy takes possession, de facto, then the other guy becomes the moitzi, and the burden of proof will be on the other guy. However, one thing Beis Din will do, Beis Din doesn't get involved, but Beis Din will not allow for anyone else to get involved. Because what can happen is that if Reuben and Shimon are fighting, and each one currently has equal proof, we say kol the alam gvar between Reuben and Shimon. What happens if Chaim gets involved? And Chaim is the strong man, and Chaim takes it for one of the two. Beis Din will kick out Chaim. No, it's Beis Din doesn't get involved. Beis Din does not allow anyone else to get involved either. Now let's go when the Edom are not exactly the same. Now you have to help copy. One guy brings Edom, shehi shall avoisav, that it belonged to his father between these two litigants. So the Edom is that it belonged to his father, and he, not the father, he, the son, he ate shnei chazak. V'hitachas yadeh. Vehevi hasheni Edom, that he, the litigant, ate shnei chazaka, and like we learned in halacha daled, the same years. You know, it's now I'm now in it. Are they equal? Kevan, they're not exactly equal. The Edom is regarding them eating chazaka, but the first guy also claimed it belonged to his father. There's one up that he has. These two witnesses cancel each other out. But because the witnesses are testifying for the first guy, not only that he, the son, ate for 3 years, that it belonged to the father. No one contradicted that. So the moment one has Edim regarding one taina that the fellow did not contradict, so we give it to him. Beautiful. But what happens? The second guy also comes back later. Now, says, we don't say, Kevan, that since the first guy is already in there, it's as if he won. Call the Alam Gavad is effective after Beis Din removes themselves. Whoever now will win, he'll be considered the muhsek. Here, this first guy won because it was not yet done. Once Beis Din gets additional information, now Beis Din will remove the first guy. They will leave the field in front of both of them, and we're going to say the Chalam is Gabe Yedid Bo. Halacha above. One guy claims it belonged to my father. The other guy claims Shalavois. Guy number 2, litigant number 1, brings Edom that it belonged to his father. Litigant number 2 is Edom Shachol Shnei Chazaka. Guys, don't forget, this is important. Chazaka doesn't prove anything. Chazaka is only something that gives power to my taina. It means if once you prove that it belonged to your father, I'm claiming that it belonged to my father. That's my claim. I have no Edom for that. So now my chazaka is meaningless. To the point that all of the produce that I ate, I have to give back. Why do I have to bring it back? Because there are Edom that says that I ate. I'm claiming that I ate, so now pay back. Gavaldik. Shaharei loitron olavtum. There's no timer. My eating is not approved, like we said in Perek Yud Dalet. Shekol chazaka she'enim ataynu ala ba'olam enim klum. Aber 1 second. Let's go back to the rules about can you change your claim in court? No. No. But if I'm adding an explanation, I'm making a new claim, but I'm explaining it's not a new claim. I'm explaining why I never said it before. Many times I will have credibility. So Chazar Zah Machzik V'Amar came. No. It was from your father. But you sold it to me. Now the problem is that on Halacha Vav, this guy began by claiming, this litigant number 2, that it was litigant number 2's fault. Now he's changing the things. Says you have Edom, it belonged to your father, litigant 1. True. Never belonged to my father. I bought it from you. But I said it belonged to my father. I'm so connected to this land. I have so much rights to this land. It's as if I got it from my father. That's what I meant. know that it's mine. You know, that's the security that a good father brings to his children. Oh, so when a guy says, this belongs to my father, you feel safe in it. That's what I meant. Or he says, it used to belong to your father, but my father bought it off your father. Don't forget, this case in Halacha Vav is that only litigant 2 has a chazaka. And now he has a taina. He's changing his claim. It's not called a change. He's giving a justification as to what he meant originally. That's called an amasla. And therefore, now, but if litigant number 2 was more articulate, when he heard number 1 saying it belongs to number 1's father, number 2 says it's my father's and not your father's. You cannot change that. Because that's called a toyin b'chayzer b'toyin. And that's exactly what we learned in Perek Zayin. Halacha, now halacha Zayin. Reuven is currently in the land. That's at least the Rambam is consistent with all of this. Shimon, which is son number 2, is the original owner. Shimon the Eidor Olav, claiming it's mine, Shimon's. Reuven. Now listen to this. Reuven is saying, listen, Saduzu mi Levi kinisia. The current occupant says, I bought it from Levi, and I ate Shnei Chazaka. Comes along the original owner that's proving, he already proved that he was the original owner. And he says, I have a document. Listen to this guy, Salkov. Shimon is saying, my document that's proving that I own it also is admitting that Levi used to own it, but I bought it from Levi 4 years ago. We'll see. The number is extremely important. Reuven begins when we said in Halacha Zayin, Reuven was here for 3 years. What does Beis Din know right now? Levi used to be the owner. Levi used to be, they both admit that. So if Levi sold it 4 years ago to Shimon, and he sold it 3 years ago to Reuven, who will Beis Din award it to? To Shimon. Because if Levi owns it, if we're not debating that, whoever he sold it to first is a sale. And when Levi sold something later, he did not own it to sell it. So far, Shimon is the winner. But 1 second. Reuven then says, what you think just because I said I have a chazaka, I never said that I only bought it 3 years ago. I bought Eidim that I'm here for 3 years. But I was here for much more as well. Shanim Rabbois Yeshli. I bought it many years prior from Levi. So they're both admitting that Levi was the owner. Then Harei Tainas Reuven Taina. Reuven said in the beginning, I'm here for chazaka. Again, he's not making a new claim. Yeah, he was here up until now. Years of chazaka doesn't mean 3 and not more. It means 3 and not less. But it can mean many more years. But now I have a question. Hold on. We're not done yet. When people learn this, they think that what happens. So Beis Din is going to ask Reuven, how many years do you have a chazaka? And by the way, he's going to have to bring Eidim. If the guy says 5 years, it won't be enough. I'll tell you why it won't be enough. Okay? Both of them are admitting that it used to belong to Levi. The question is simply, to whom did Levi sell it first? Don't forget, Shimon has a document that he bought it from Levi 4 years ago. The current document has no such document. He's only relying on the chazak. Levi, how many years prior to 4 years ago must Reuven have proof that he had chazaka? 3 years. In other words, he has to actually now say that he was there for 7 years or more. Because if he's only there for 6 years, which means that after 2 years of him being there, Levi sold it to Shimon, that's called making a protest. When we speak about the original owner should have protested. There's no greater protest than by selling it. You're saying, I'm the owner. In other words, he's going to have a raya now for 7 years. For it to come out that he had a full 3 years prior to Shimon's buying it from Levi, Then, but if he doesn't bring up proof that he was there for 7 years, beautiful. Next case. Two litigants. Litigant number one says, it used to belong to my father. That's how I have it. That's why it's mine. And he brings Aiden. But litigant number two has no Aiden. So it's simple. So far, we give it back to litigant number one. And again, litigant number two was there. He's saying he was there. He's saying it's his. But now that you lost it, you have to pay back the fruit. Because the very fact that a person says that I am here because it used to belong to my father, he's basically admitting that he ate paytas. So the beauty here is that litigant number one will get not only the land, he's going to get the paytas from litigant number two. He doesn't even have Aiden that litigant number two ate, but litigant number two is claiming Shalavoisai. He was Maida. You're Maida, pay up. So if you have one person living in a property, the protester brings proof that it belongs to the protester, not to his father. The guy in possession claims, I bought it from you. Not chazak. I bought it from you, and here's the document. And he brings out a already authenticated document. And now the protester claims Shuhu Mezuyav, which normally would not stand. What happened now is that the current occupant says, you're right. Oh yeah, Moida, this document is a forgery. But hold on. Why did I bring it up? Because I used to have a kosher star. I lost it. I only brought out this document. I was hoping that this guy would admit. What do we do over here? Here we give him a migu. Again, there's a protest. He's saying that he has Adam, that it used to belong to him. I bought it from you, but not like an halacha test, a star. But going back to our topic, the current occupant brings Adam of chazaka, and the tiny is I bought it. Okay, so far we would give it to the current occupant. But let's go the back and forth. Now the protester lodges a complaint and he says, how can you claim that you bought it? I know you have Adam that you're here. I know that. But you're saying that I sold it to you 3 years ago. You know what? 3 years ago, I was not in this country to sell it to you. Okay, the Adam was not, they saw the sale. The Adam is that he has a chazak. Chazaka has to have a taina. We believe it's taina. But now the protester is challenging the taina. I was not here. If he says that, now the current occupant has to bring another raya. Shazeh Pliny Hamanharin was in this country during the day that he claimed he bought it, even though he only has to prove he was there for 1 day, for it to be possible that he sold it. And you know what? If he can't bring a raya, they remove him. That's the whole thing, that chazaka is not a taina. Chazaka gives credibility to your taina. But here, his taina was poked, the hole was poked on the taina. Final halach of this chapter, halach Yud Aleph, someone traveled overseas, but let me tell you the case. Cases like this. Reuven and Shimon, guys. Reuven owns a field in middle of 4 surrounding fields. In middle meaning the only way Reuven can get to his field is by walking through one of the 4 fields around. In most scenarios, he's there. Every day he's going on a certain path. So he has a chazaka on a certain path. That's the way I always walked. Simply because that's the way I'm doing it for all these years, I will be believed that this path is mine. Not mine, I own it. I have the user rights of going through it. What happens if I travel? I travel. And I left for many years. And when I return, I forgot how I got here. Now, there's many cases. Do the surrounding fields belong to one person? Do the surrounding fields belong to 4 people? Because each guy in the surrounding fields can tell Reuven, you never walked through my field. That's the case over here. Whether the 4 surrounding fields belong to 4 separate people, which makes it the worst for the middle guy, because he's challenging each one separately. Each one tells him, it was not by my field. Go to the neighboring field. Or even if, listen to this, there are 4 people that own the 4 fields. They originally bought it from one. You would think, even here, each one says, yeah, the original owner would have to let you walk through one of the fields, but only on the one that you had a chazaka in. It wasn't in this one. Each one can push him off. It's on my neighboring, not on this. The guy in the middle who has no option. I'll have to pay 100 mana. This is just to have the right to walk through, or let him fly. Let him take a drone. Now, furthermore, if now they belong to one person, that's the chiddush. As long as this one guy bought it from 4 different people, still the guy will have to buy off the one owner of all of the surrounding fields, because he tells him now, if I would return the deed for each property that I brought, making it back belonging to 4 people, you would not be able to walk on either of them. So I bought, just because I'm one guy that bought it, I bought all the rights. Since each owner had the right to push you off, I bought their field with that right. Only exception is, if the people that surrounded, all of the fields belong to one person, and he always was the guy that owned it, which means Reuven used to walk through one of the fields. The only question now is which field. Reuven doesn't have the right to determine that, but the owner of the surrounding fields will have to give him one path. I definitely walk through one of your properties. Now you determine which one, but I'm not going to have to pay you for it. Now let's add to that. If this Reuven, who went many years overseas, who returned, if he was able to grab a path, you say that but it goes both ways. If he now takes a path, this used to be my path, you can't kick him out either. Then fakir, the surrounding field has to prove that this was not his path. Beautiful. Chabra, to be continued.
Thank you, Rabbi Zajac.